In the quiet, mist-shrouded valleys of the Appalachian Mountains, there lies a secret, a story so deeply buried that the earth itself seems to guard it. This is not merely a tale of tragedy, but a chronicle of something far more ancient and far more sinister. A story of a pact made in shadow, a sacrifice demanded by the depths, and a truth that was never meant to surface. This is the story of Granite Hollow. The town of Larrick, Kentucky, was like many others nestled in those ancient hills, a community bound together by the coal that ran like a black vein through the mountains. For generations, the people of Larrick descended into the darkness of the Granite Hollow mine, emerging each day covered in the dust of their labor. They were fathers, sons, brothers, men who knew the risks of their work but trusted in the strength of the rock and the skill of their hands. But on a cold November morning in 1962, that trust was shattered. 12 men entered the mine. None returned. There was no explosion, no cave-in, no desperate calls for help over the radio. There was only silence, a deep, unnatural silence that seemed to swallow all sound and all hope. The company called it a tragic accident, but the details never added up. Rescue teams were strangely restricted, certain tunnels declared off-limits. And then there was the Walla section of the mine hastily sealed with fresh mortar, a barrier that should not have been there. Questions were asked, but answers were not given. Soon, the mine was closed, and the story of the 12 lost men faded into legend, becoming just another ghost story told in hushed tones. For 50 years, Granite Hollow slept. But secrets have a way of stirring, of scratching at the door of memory until someone finally listens. That someone was David Lorne, a historian and urban explorer. David had grown up with the whispers of Granite Hollow. He had heard the stories, seen the fear in the eyes of those who remembered. Driven by a need to uncover the truth, he spent years researching, piecing together fragments of maps and company records until he found a clue, an old blueprint that showed a section of the mine that did unappear on any official document. A tunnel that led to a place that wasn't supposed to exist. Armed with little more than a camera and a determination to finally learn what happened, David ventured into the abandoned mine. The air was thick and stale, the silence oppressive. Deep within the mountain, he found the sealed wall. With painstaking effort, he broke through, and what he found on the other side would change everything. It was a room, a chamber that should not have been there. The air inside was cold and still, as if time itself had stopped. A single steel door, bolted from the inside, was covered in scratches, hundreds of them, clawed into the metal as if by desperate hands. The room was furnished with old cots, shelves stocked with supplies, and a small table where a Bible lay open to the Book of Job. On the wall, carved into the stone, was a message: "We were chosen but not saved." David's discovery ignited a firestorm of speculation and fear. But it also stirred something else, long-buried memories and guilty consciences. An anonymous letter arrived, warning him to leave the past alone. A former miner's daughter confessed that her father had spoken of strange rituals in the weeks before the disappearance. And a local priest, trembling with fear, showed David a hidden church record, a list of names, including the 12 miners, each marked with a single word: delivered. As David dug deeper, he uncovered a history far darker than he could have imagined. The mine, it turned out, had never been solely about coal. Its original owners, a shadowy company called Dunwell and Sons Geotechnics, had been less interested in mineral wealth and more interested in what lay beneath the mountain, something ancient, something hungry. Old maps spoke of a restricted chamber deep below the mine, a place guarded by warnings to not breach below the salt line. This was no natural cavern. It was a prison built to contain something that should never see the light of day. David realized that the disappearance of the 12 miners was not an accident, it was a ritual. A sacrifice made to appease whatever slept in the darkness below. The church had blessed it, the company had facilitated it, and the town had chosen to forget it. But the thing in the dark had not forgotten. Driven by a need for proof, David returned to the mine with a team of experts. Beyond the first sealed room, they found another barrier, this one newer, stronger, and wrapped in prayer cloths scorched black as if by fire. Something had tried to burn its way out. When they breached this second seal, they found a circular chamber, its walls carved with names and ancient symbols. In the center stood a stone altar, stained dark and cracked down the middle. Scattered bones lay on the floor, and the air hummed with a low, malevolent energy. On the altar they found a journal, the final testament of one of the miners, Matthew Crow. His words told a story of creeping madness. He wrote of a beautiful, haunting song that echoed through the tunnels, a voice that called to the men, twisting their minds. He spoke of comrades who began to speak in tongues, of symbols carved into flesh, of a presence that watched them from the shadows. His last entry was a frantic scrawl. "It is listening." The truth was now undeniable. The miners had been led to their deaths not by accident but by design. They were offerings in a pact made by men who believed they could control the ancient terror beneath their feet. But the thing in the dark was no mere beast to be sated, it was a consciousness, patient and cunning, that had waited centuries for its freedom. David's findings sparked an official investigation, but the truth was too dangerous, too unbelievable. The mine was sealed once more, this time with concrete and steel. The government declared the area off-limits, citing geological instability. The story of Granite Hollow was buried again, deeper than before. But sometimes, on quiet nights when the wind blows down from the mountains, the people of Larik still hear things a faint, echoing song from beneath the earth, a whisper that was never meant to be heard, and they remember the 12 men who were chosen, but not saved. They remember the price of curiosity and the terrible truth that some doors should never be opened. This is the story of Granite Hollow, a story they tried to bury. But the earth remembers. It always remembers,